All right. So we got several topics we can talk about today. I did want to start with the history of the regional offices. So the way I like to say it is for about 200 years, there was one United States Patent and Trademark Office, and it started in Washington, D.C., and then it moved a little bit outside the jurisdiction of Washington, D.C. into Arlington, and now it's in Alexandria. But we went for over about 200 years without any regional offices at all. So when and why did the USPTO create regional offices?
So great question. And thank you, David. And thank you for all of you who are here. It is so great to see all of you, just the history of not only my career, but also celebrating all these conferences. I do remember the first conference. I was in law school here, and I really appreciate it. And we were super excited when Professor Nguyen came on board. And at that time and up until yesterday, we didn't know we shared a birthday. So it was great. So yes, so for 200 years, Professor Taylor, you are absolutely right. But we didn't have regional offices. And with the advent, the signing of the American Invents Act in 2011, that's when the regional office concept really started to come about. And so the first office opening in Detroit, and then followed by Denver, and then following that was Silicon Valley. And then I like to say they saved the best for last, right? The Texas office opened as the fourth regional office, rounding out all the regional offices across the country. Dallas and in Texas was always at the top of the list for the USPTO, and there were a couple of reasons for that. One was fact that there was lots of technology that was not only happening, but was emerging and coming about. Texas, in case you didn't know, has the second most number of patent grants out of all the states in the country. So number one was California, Texas was number two. And in addition to that, there was a huge veteran population, which was really a key factor in us deciding, particularly in Dallas, ironically. In case you didn't know, for a period of time, my office had 60% of our patent examiners were veterans. And so hugely proud of that, and the veteran population, being able to get them to serve in a different capacity after serving our country in the military. The other reason that Dallas was very popular as well was because of the technology. There was a lot of individuals that we could hire from a technology background. And so for those of you who don't know, the USPTO, 80% of our workforce has technology backgrounds. 80% of our workforce is patent operations. And so we need a lot of those who are with the hard science or engineering backgrounds. And it was very difficult to be able to get that many people, about 8,500 people, to be able to work for our office only off of the East Coast. And so having the ability to be able to spread out throughout the entire United States to be able to access some of those resources has been incredible. And it's proven to be true. I don't know if you know, but when we were hiring and putting out our job postings for the Texas regional office in particular, we had more applicants than any other office in the country apply for 25 spots. We like to say that the ratio of hiring and getting into the Texas regional office was harder than getting into Harvard Law School. And so that was a rate of acceptance with the office. But we had huge numbers of individuals applying for our office, as well as on the PTOP front. We always, in every single round of PTOP hiring, had judges that were hired and housed with our office. And so all of those things, putting the office in Texas, in the Dallas area in particular, just reinforced that decision for the USPTO.
I'm curious as to the numbers. Do you have a rough estimate of the number of patent examiners the Dallas office has recruited and trained, and then also maybe judges as well?
Yeah, great question. And so right now we have about 450 folks who live in Texas, just in general, who work for the USPTO, and it's spread throughout the entire Texas area. For our office in particular, we have trained about 145 patent examiners, and we have hired 21 PTAB judges. And so since then, we've had a number of other judges and examiners who have moved in. And so within Dallas, so we measure everything in a 50-mile radius within the PTO. So in Dallas, in and of itself, we currently have 188 patent examiners in the area. And we have about 9 judges specifically currently sitting or have offices and associated with the Texas Regional Office. Our office has always been a telework friendly office. And so the design has always been for folks to come in, on board, and then spread out. And with respect to PTAB in particular, we have a huge contingency who started and onboarded with my office, but have now moved to Austin. And it is the largest city that has the largest number of PTAB judges not associated with a regional office or with headquarters.
So very interesting. So I know a major focus at the beginning of the office was recruiting and training patent examiners in particular. Is the office still hiring and training, or are you in a steady state? I'm sure some examiners probably leave the USPTO. I don't know how many, but are you still hiring?
Yes, so the office in general as a whole, USPTO nationwide, we are still hiring, but our model post-pandemic has obviously changed. So previous to the pandemic, 70% of our workforce worked from home 100% of the time. Understand we have a workforce of about 14,000 employees. And after the pandemic, we are at 90% work from home 100% of the time. And so in that similar vein, we are starting to ramp back up our patent hiring in person. And so during the entire pandemic, and even now, most of our hiring is completely virtual. And so we are in the process of actually evaluating that to try to see if we want to start to do more in-person hiring. The first class of patent examiners in person was just hired into the Alexandria office. And so that was just piloted last month. And so we're trying to see what the effect is with respect to that. I am very hopeful that we will see more patent examiner hiring and training, and more judges training, and more people coming in on site. Now, out of all the regional offices and actually in headquarters as well, we actually have the most number of employees that are coming in on a regular basis. And so 30%, believe it or not, that's high. 30% of our offices are occupied, and we do have a contingency that is regularly coming in. And I'm very happy to say that our office is utilized very well.
So I'm going to go off script for just a moment, but I'm reminded of when the regional office started. I think there was a misconception that when you applied for a patent, you would get a local patent examiner, but that proved not to be true. And so why is that? And we could also, by the way, add trademark examiners. There was not an emphasis on hiring trademark examiners. So if you could address that as well.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And so, yeah, you're right. I mean, initially, when you look at the map, and we have split up the entire United States, and each of the regional offices has a responsibility for certain states. And so my office, we have responsibility for 9 different states. And you would think, or a lot of people think, that if my office, for example, and you're in Oklahoma or in Texas, and you are filing an application, that it would necessarily be reviewed by the Texas Regional Office. But that is not necessarily the case. And so we have 8,500 patent examiners spread throughout the United States. And if you just remembered, how many have we trained? 145. And we have each of those patent examiners, all are very, very, very specialized in a specific technology area. And because of the 650,000 patent applications that we have coming in, it really is just not possible for each of the individual offices, my office, to even cover Texas alone, and to be able to spread the wide breadth of technologies across the board. And so the applications that are coming in are still being sent to those patent examiners with that particular technology area that they specialize in, and they can be anywhere in the United States. The regional offices, and I didn't answer this question earlier. The regional offices, the mission of the regional offices has actually evolved over the years. Originally, when we set up the regional offices, one of the main purposes was for patent examiner and PTAB judge hiring. And as the offices started to evolve and we started to do additional outreach, we recognized that it was really, really important for us to be able to engage with our stakeholders and be a resource for our stakeholders. There was huge demand for information on how to file a patent, how to file a trademark, huge demand on understanding the tie and what is significant about owning IP, because many of them have, especially those who are not in our practice area, as you know, many people don't know what the difference between the 4 buckets of IP. And the first time they ever heard the word patent was on Shark Tank. And they were like, oh, maybe I should think about having a patent. So because of that, the evolution of outreach has become a huge part of the regional offices. Now, back to the question on trademarks. So trademarks originally was not part of the regional office plan with respect to hiring. Trademarks, attorneys, believe it or not, we do actually have about 24 trademark examining attorneys in Texas. And one of them lives 10 minutes away from my office. But trademarks was not originally in the plan of just really needing to go out there and do really heavy recruiting. We really, really needed a lot of patent examiners. We were hiring 1,000 patent examiners per year at that time. And actually, we are back at that cadence in which currently right now, this fiscal year, we need to hire almost 1,000 patent examiners because the workload is just so high. And so that's the reason that we didn't have trademark examining attorneys physically in the office. Now we do have them coming in every once in a while to use our offices and our facilities. Now, certainly we do have them as part of our outreach programs, but that was the original reason why trademark examining attorneys were not housed in the regional offices.
Okay, so I think we've now transitioned. You talked about the evolution of the purpose of the office going from recruiting primarily patent examiners to outreach. So you've used that word outreach. I'm just going to talk about impact on the Texas geographic area. It's broader than just Texas. But when you say outreach, what's included? What activities does the office coordinate? What resources does the office provide?
Right, great question. So outreach to us is anytime we are engaging with the public and stakeholders in our office. They could be future stakeholders, they could be current stakeholders, and so we work with a number of different groups. We do programming that's associated with K through 12, in which we are working with kids and getting them excited about STEM and science. We work with the teachers in which we are educating them, giving them tools and ideas on how to bring science and technology alive in their classrooms. We work with small businesses and entrepreneurs answering their questions on basic IP, tying intellectual property to business, because sometimes you don't realize every aspect that IP touches in a business. We work with corporations and lawyers like yourself and law students, the more sophisticated filers, as we call them, because they are the frequent filers in our office, answering questions and getting feedback, frankly, on the good, the bad, the ugly, as I like to call it, on how we are doing overall. We also work with universities and tech transfer offices. We work with the government. A lot of representatives and senators, actually, they have their own programs, and they invite us a lot of times to come and support them to be able to help with the programs that they have on the ground, and they want IP education across the board. So when we're talking about outreach, we're engaging all aspects of different groups. One of my favorite stories I like to tell is that when we were out in El Paso one time, we were teaching a group of teachers, and we took them through the entire invention process. And so there was a group of teachers that were out there, and we asked them, we said, come up with, identify a problem and come up with a solution to that problem. And so there was a group of teachers who wanted to solve the problem of smelly kids coming in from recess, right? Classic teacher problem. And so when the solution and the invention that they came up with was this nasal strip that they would put on their nose and it would be scented. The kids would still be stinky, but the teachers wouldn't smell them anymore, right? And so, but those are some of the things that we talk about, some of the ideas that we're working with, and it is a lot of fun to be able to bring this alive to them.
So you mentioned El Paso. That reminds me of one of the things you told me during our preparation session for today. You told me that there are only 2 registered patent attorneys in Texas south of San Antonio. And so that's remarkable. This is reminds me though of this relatively new idea that's come up since we've had the regional offices. Now we're talking about community outreach offices, which would be a little bit different. How will those work and how will they fit into the USPTO hierarchy?
Yeah, great question. And so, yeah, I mean, there's so many areas that do not have patent resources. And as David said, I mean, there are only 2 registered patent attorneys south of San Antonio. I remember when I went to UTRGV and we met with one of those 2 attorneys and we requested to meet with them. It was almost unbelief on the phone when we said, hey, we're coming, we're doing an exploratory trip. We're trying to see what we could do. And he showed up at the restaurant. It was almost like a test. Are you really coming? Right? Because no one ever comes down here and they're so under-resourced. And so it was a really good trip. But yes, last year in December, Congress passed what's called the Unleashing American Innovators Act. And so there were a couple of provisions that were associated with it. One of them was associated with opening a community outreach center or a community outreach office. We're calling it COOs. And what these were we were all familiar with regional offices and what they were. But what a coup was designed to be an office in a location that was difficult for individuals to get to. And so the regional offices, all of them are located in relatively metropolitan areas, but not everyone can actually access a regional office. And so what a coup was really a way for the USPTO to bring our resources and our expertise and our and the government help to an area that was really needing it. And so it's a smaller version of what you might think of a regional office, but it's solely focused on outreach and it's designed to be in a location that a regional office is not. So we talked about right south of the border, and I do really believe that south of us, not south of the border, south of San Antonio really could benefit from a coup. But unfortunately, the statute does not allow for a coup to exist in a state with a regional office already. And so but I'm hoping that some of the other states that are within my region can benefit from a coup.
All right, so I thought we'd transition to our third topic, and that's how regional offices have changed the innovation landscape. So the big question here is how you measure success, but I think it's in this context, it's what's the impact of the Texas regional office on Dallas, Texas, the greater regional area, and then is it the community generally, the economic landscape, the IB community? There's lots of different possibilities here. So how do you measure success?
Yeah, that's a really great question because one of the questions that we're always asking is what is our return? We like to call it return on engagement, not necessarily return on investment, because we spend a lot of money, right, in which we're traveling and we are doing outreach in a number of different areas. And so let me give you some numbers with respect to my office. Every year, we host about 300 outreach events. And so that's almost one a day. And we reach almost 10,000 people every year. And so since the regional office has opened, we have held almost 1,500 events, and we've reached about 120,000, maybe more individuals just within the region in and of itself. And so there is a huge, huge appetite for outreach. We couldn't possibly do it, even if all 150 people who could possibly physically sit in our office were all doing outreach 100% of the time, it still wouldn't be enough. And so, but outreach is not just measured by the number of people that we're touching and the number of events that we're doing. The true question is, are they really learning and yielding from the education that we are providing them? It's something that's really hard to measure because, as you know, patents is not something that we'll see, oh, we're going to file it tomorrow, and then immediately you'll see that they're going to get the grant, right, at the end of the day, within a year. It's a very long process for them to get there. And so some of the things that we're looking at and we're measuring across the board are some of the things that I think Keith mentioned in earlier today. How do we increase engagement from underserved and underrepresented communities? How do we get them involved and included in the entire ecosystem? Because it's a long-term viewpoint that we're looking at, in which if we're bringing more people in, then we know that there is more growth, more economic growth, not only personally, but to the economy as well. And it would benefit entire societies at the end of the day. And so we're looking at all of these things as we start to increase the number of women, the number of minorities who are participating in the system. We're going to look at new stakeholders. So one of the biggest initiatives that our deputy director has us working on right now is to reach out to HBCUs and historically underserved communities. And so reaching out to them and building their IP systems, their portfolios, just classes, talking to their students, and to be able to increase that and give them access and information is one of the huge initiatives that we're working on.
So there's so many initiatives. We're not going to have time to talk about all of these, but I'm just going to go off. I kind of took some notes from our previous discussion, right, about the different initiatives and the ways that you're reaching out and impacting the innovation community. There's patent clinics. We have one here at SMU. There are trademark clinics. We have one here at SMU. There's the pro bono initiative, which is significantly kind of emphasized by the patent office, and we have one here in Texas. We have the new patent drafting competition, which
We need judges, by the way.
which some SMU students compete in. More generally, and this doesn't relate just to regional offices, but we have a cancer moonshot program. We have a climate initiative. And then one I do want to talk about briefly is the semiconductor initiative. So here in Texas, I understand the USPTO has been involved with something called the Texoma Semiconductor Tech Hub. So what is it?
So a couple of months ago, actually it's been more than a couple of months, in October of last year, the Economic Development Agency, which is part of the Department of Commerce, which is where USPTO sits, by in case you're wondering, they announced 31 tech hubs. And the 31 tech hubs are spread out throughout the entire United States. And the design of the tech hubs is to be able to promote innovation as well as national security in particular technology areas. And so SMU, as well as Texoma Semiconductor, has been identified as the semiconductor tech hub. And what it is the EDA wants to invest money in those particular technology areas so that it can grow in certain areas. And so New Orleans also actually has a tech hub. And so and theirs is related to climate. And the USPTO is supporting this initiative by working with the different groups and be able to provide them not only IP education, be able to support them in a number of different areas. And so some of the things that they've asked us for is access and demoing. For example, our search tools. How do they identify how many semiconductor patents are within the DFW area? And we've been able to demo some of those tools so that they can kind of figure out what the landscape really looks at. And so working with them on their IP portfolios, IP strategies. There's a lot of expertise within the group already, especially from the tech transfer office at SMU, but we're just there really actually to support them to be able to help promote the innovation and give them information so that they can build the portfolio and build the technology along the way.
Okay, for our fourth and last topic, I want to turn our discussion to the prospect for how the USPTO generally and their regional offices in particular may continue to impact innovation and legal practice in the future. So the first point, I understand there's a new regional office coming online. When and where?
So we recently announced that there will be a new regional office opening up next year, probably around the December timeframe in the Atlanta, Georgia area. So as I mentioned earlier, the Unleashing American Innovators Act also asked the USPTO to open at least one more regional office, and we are very excited to announce that it's going to be in the Atlanta area. What's also really nice is that next year, my office celebrates our 10-year anniversary in November. And so on the heels of that will be the opening of the Atlanta office, and very excited. We also announced in that same announcement the location of our first COO, the Community Outreach Office. And it's going to be in the northern New England area, specifically in New Hampshire. So very excited to be opening that up as well. The timing for that one is a little bit further out than the regional office. We're focusing currently right now because it is a very aggressive goal for us to actually we have to physically stand it up in by December of next year.
And there's a very recent development in the area of artificial intelligence. So I want to get to that. But first, I'd be remiss if I didn't highlight that SMU and the USPTO have been at the forefront of artificial intelligence. So back in 2018, and if you think about that, 6 years ago, which is a very long time in the history of artificial intelligence, or at least it's long before the general public became aware of artificial intelligence. We actually hosted right in this room, then Director Iancu held a roundtable with local practitioners and business people to talk about artificial intelligence. And so that was in 2018, so a little while ago. But there's a recent development at the USPTO related to AI. I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about it.
All right, thank you. So we've been very active in the last 2 weeks on AI. So AI has been at the forefront of many discussions around the world with respect to patent offices, as David has said. But it's recently gotten a lot of attention, even from the White House, in the sense that the White House has issued an executive order for the safe, secure, and transparent use and development of AI. And so there were a number of things that were associated with that executive order, and the purpose to that order was not only to provide safety and security for Americans, but also to promote innovation and competitiveness and making sure that we continue to be a leader in that technology front. And so with that in mind, the USPTO has been wrestling with a couple of different questions. And so last week, the USPTO, our director, issued a memorandum to our PTAB, our TTAB, as well as our solicitor's office with respect to the misuse of AI generated information with respect to our office. The good news is, and this was based on fraudulent evidence or things that could be submitted fraudulently to our office. The good news is, with respect to our office, is we felt like that our current rules of ethics and professional ethics rules, those are already things that are available for our judiciary on the PTAB and TTAB front. So they already have tools in their pocket to be able to address misuse or things that might be coming in that were AI generated that are not legitimate things that should be presented before the USPTO. The other thing is that we also issued on Monday, and it was effective on February 13th, a RFC with respect to how patent examiners are going to be identifying inventors that are with inventions that are AI assisted. So AI, a computing device or more than one computing device has been a part of the invention process. And so how do we identify the human inventor, and how much does the human inventor have to contribute before they are listed as an inventor? And so I don't think it's a huge departure from what we had previously said, but it gives some tools for our examiners to be able to say yes, no, and some guidance with respect to that. The notice specifically says that there has to be a significant contribution by that inventor in order for them to be listed as an inventor on the application. And there's also a couple of examples that we issued as part of that particular guidance. We are actually going to be having a public hearing on March 5th, and comments are due in May. I think it's May 13th that the comments are due with respect to that particular notice.
All right. Hope did indicate that she is open to questions. So I wanted to take this opportunity to see if anybody in the audience had any questions for Hope.
Human element is less than the threshold, what happens to that?
So should I repeat the question? If the human effort is less than the threshold, what happens to the patent application?
So that's a really good question. I mean, I would suspect that the rules of inventiveness would apply. And so probably similar to what would happen. We did have the Dabbas case. Are y'all all aware of the Dabbas case that came into the PTO? I would suspect that it would be treated in a similar fashion as not something that could be patentable.
Any other questions for Hope? No one's shooting there. Oh, one more.
Granted, there's so many people all the time who are trying to get patent applications, but they don't have the money to do so because they can't afford patent. Do you know of any resources at the regional office or elsewhere that are trying, they're clearly helping this group of people?
All right. Do you want to speak the question?
Can you guys all hear that? I think so. Yeah.
Okay, so great question. Thank you. I love that question. Yeah, the USPTO has really been working on providing access and providing different resources to those who otherwise cannot afford an attorney, for example. So one of the things that we do is we work with, in Texas, Texas Accountants and Lawyers for the Arts. And they are a group of volunteer attorneys who are able to support those who fall below a certain income threshold. And they will draft and file patent applications for them with our office. The other resource, I think David mentioned it, is the patent and trademark clinics. And we actually have 4 of those in Texas, in which they are able to have law school students be able to be supervised under practicing attorneys, and they are able to also file applications. The other thing we do is we have trained librarians around the country to be able to answer basic IP questions. And so we have over 80 librarians or libraries who have been trained. These are called patent and trademark resource centers, and they are able to answer basic questions, help individuals as they're trying to do patent and trademark searches. We also have a number of 1-800 numbers within the USPTO. We have an inventor assistance center, as well as a trademark assistance center that's available for individuals to actually call. And then online, we actually have a web page, which is now called Access USPTO, that allows people to go online to look at videos of previously recorded sessions that we have on IP basics, how to file a patent application, how to file a trademark application. We also have what's called an IP identifier, in which you can go online and take a little bit of test or survey to identify what types of intellectual property you might have. And so it's a really cool tool. But we also are willing, if you want to call our office, we are happy to give you training or to answer questions as well. So lots of different things. Oh, one more thing I didn't want to forget. We also just recently launched a first-time filer pilot. And so if you fall below the income threshold or you are considered a micro entity, then you can actually get expedited review for your first patent application. You do have to be a first-time filer. And so that's a recent thing that we actually just launched.
All right, we are out of time. So please join me in thanking Hope for being here. And we really appreciate it.